Puma Punku is a monumental construction in Western Bolivia. Possibly thousands of years old, it features huge granite rocks that have been worked on with an incredible precision that would challenge a modern-day engineer. But how did they do it? And what was it for? Join us on Aliens Explored as we delve into whether this ancient wonder might have been the work of more advanced visitors from another world. Also, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Aliens Explored, where you can participate more fully in our investigations for just £2 sterling a month.
Aliens Explored is a weekly podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a sceptical perspective, whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it?
Welcome back, listeners, to Aliens Explored, your weekly podcast where we look at UFOs, alien abductions, the people involved in ufology, and of course historical ancient encounters as well. I am one of your hosts, Stu Jackson.
And I'm your other host, Neil Kelly.
And it's good to see you as ever, Neil.
And likewise, you're looking good. Looking pretty hot.
I'm feeling quite warm. Or is that not the kind of hot you meant?
Yeah, that's what I meant, yeah. I'm not going to descend into lewd behaviour.
Oh, dear me. Yeah, so what's new with you? What's been happening in Neil's world?
What's been happening? Things have been ticking away fairly slowly. I drank rather more than I should have done last night. Is that
a particular occasion, or
no? I just met up with a friend, and we just ended up drinking more than was wise. But you know, I didn't feel that drunk. You know, the time when you think, "Oh, I'm not actually that drunk," then you wake up the next morning and you're rough as anything. And think, "Oh yeah, maybe."
It might not have been that you were drunk. It might, but just be you didn't drink enough water.
There's that too. I had a friend who would always, whenever she went out drinking, she would place a chair on her bed. Just a normal chair with a pint of water and 2 paracetamol. So she had to actually pick up the water and the paracetamol and of course the chair to get into bed. To make sure she took it.
Okay.
Because it's easy to say, well, yeah, I'll make sure I drink a pint of water and take some paracetamol when I get home. Then you just sort of crawl in the door and your bed's there and you just fall on it and there you go. But if you actually got obstacles in your way that involve you having to pick up this glass of water and 2 paracetamol, well, yeah.
I like the thinking, but
follow me for more life hacks, listeners.
Trouble is, I have been in some states whereby I might not have noticed the chair and the glass of water. And of course, you know why there are no headache tablets in the jungle, don't you?
Go on then.
Because the paracetamol.
The paracetamol. It's not Christmas yet. We're not supposed to be pulling out Christmas cracker jokes.
Actually, I'm wondering if our American listeners know what paracetamol is.
Wouldn't they know what it is? It's a...
I know ibuprofen comes under a different name.
And it's a different substance. It's an anti-inflammatory, isn't it? Paracetamol.
It's headache tablets that you can get over the counter anyway. Yeah, if anybody's wondering.
And which you can easily kill yourself with a fairly small overdose.
Maybe. Anyway, that's going a little bit dark for this podcast, to be honest. So let's move swiftly on to our topic today. And we are heading over to ancient Bolivia and Puma Punku. Is it? So,
Puma Punku, your guess is as good as mine.
I've only ever heard it spoken by Americans. Now, we call... In America, the big cat is known as a puma, but here in the UK, we call it a puma, don't we?
We would, yes.
So I don't know if this should be, because we're British, Puma Punku or Puma Punku.
Yeah, because it's not Spanish, so you can't go with the
I'm
Spanish
go with Puma Punku anyway.
Puma Punku. Yeah.
But this is a Bolivian ancient site with loads and loads of megalithic stones in it. Some big megalithic stones, 26 foot long, 100 tons. And they're scattered like somebody's knocked over a Lego tower. But they have other things, of course, in connection with Lego, in that you've got some very, very precisely cut shapes, lots of straight lines and corners, as well as perfectly circular drill holes at awkward angles. Almost laser precision in these granite, huge blocks. Look like they've been designed to interlink with each other. So some of them, what's famously called the H block designs, the recesses in them are dovetailed. That means they're wider at the back than they are at the front, which is a really good way. It's used a lot in carpentry for when you want to join two pieces of wood together, because it's a good solid joint and it's not going to slip out or anything like that. It's quite the amazing place. Had you... It's a question I often ask. Had you heard of Puma Punku before?
I hadn't, no. So is it part of the Aztec civilization?
Well, that's one of the great mysteries about this place. They don't know. They don't know who made it. They don't know why it was made. They just know it is.
They just know it is, and it's quite impressive. I mean, there are lots of these sites around the world, aren't there, where ancient peoples have made these mysterious constructions, and we don't know how they did it, how they transported such large lumps of rock, presumably long distances.
Well, we have that here in the UK, of course, with the likes of Stonehenge.
Yeah,
which is approximately the same sort of age as Puma Punku. Or, well, I'm saying that. They don't know how old Puma Punku is, but it has been estimated by some archaeologists as being about 2,000 years old.
Okay, I think Stonehenge is older than that, isn't it?
As I'm saying that, I'm thinking Neolithic. Stonehenge is about don't know if it's quite Neolithic. It's about 3,000 years old, I think.
Okay.
Stonehenge. But that in itself is quite the mystery, because the stones came from over 300 miles away. This very specific type of stone. And it's not like they didn't have stone nearby that they could have used.
How do they know it came from 300 miles away?
Because that's the only place it exists.
Okay, so it's a special kind of rock that...
Yeah. Over in, I think it's North Wales.
Oh, we're talking about Stonehenge, yeah.
Stonehenge, sorry. Yes, Stonehenge, not Puma Punku. Puma Punku, I think the granite's a fairly common stone in the area. But it's these precision cuts, and when you see the images of it, it's such incredibly straight lines and corners to it. Of course, over time it's eroded slightly, but you can see how absolutely precise these things would have been. And granite is such a hard material to work with.
Because it's quite brittle, isn't it? It's quite likely to... So you don't know what you're
Incredibly
doing.
strong, which makes it... Yeah, I mean, if you get it wrong, you're going to break it. Definitely. And because of the amount of force you need to chip away at it, it's really easy to get it wrong. And there's no evidence that anybody ever did.
I mean, there are lots of standing stone sites in the world where, they're more crude. There's not much mystery about how they got the stones there because they're not particularly big. But we still don't know what they're for. We don't know why. And then you have sites like this and Stonehenge where, it's not just the purpose that's a mystery, but how did they actually transport those rocks? And they obviously knew what they were doing. They did it with a purpose, didn't they? Someone persuaded someone else that it had to be these big stones.
Well, absolutely. You've got in Puma Punku, you've got hundreds of these megalithic stones. These huge. I mean, 26 foot long. That's massive. That's easily more than twice the height of Stonehenge.
Now, has there been any speculation as to why they did it? I mean, there's talk of these gateways and religious, I suppose, rites that will be carried out there. But,
well, I mean, speculation. That's all they've got to go on, and religious rites would be a classic thing to speculate about because that's where people have historically put the most effort into these things. But nobody actually knows. I mean, we're saying it's speculated it's 2,000 years old, but there was a chap, Arthur Poznański, who did a lot of work and a lot of calculations around the site, and he worked out that the way a lot of these stones have fallen, you can sort of determine where they would have been stood up and things like that. And he spent a lot of time doing very precise calculations, and he's figured out that these stones, when they were erect originally, they would have lined up with the stars in the sky from 17,000 years ago. So he's speculating that it is much older than 2,000 years.
Okay. That is much, much older, isn't it? That's prehistory, 17,000 years.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And like I say, we're sort of comparing with Stonehenge, which was 3,000 years ago. Stonehenge isn't a patch on Puma Punku in terms of its design and like I say, I can't get over the level of precision. Stonehenge is rough hewn rock,
which implies it's a fairly primitive structure.
Yeah,
but it's but obviously used for not such a primitive purpose. I mean, there've been all sorts of speculations about.
Again, we don't know what it was used for.
No,
no idea at all. We can only speculate because there aren't the records. When we talk about prehistoric, that's what we mean, is there were no records at the time. I get a slight sidebar on this. So there's a place not far from Stonehenge here in the UK that is another stone circle. It's a Neolithic stone circle that's about 5,000 years old called Avebury. And it is it's my favourite place in the world to be is Avebury Stone Circle. It's also happens to be at the heart of the area where they get the most crop circles in the world. Maybe coincidence, maybe not, who knows, speculation's all up. But there are people who talk about like druids. It's a big spiritual place, is Avebury, but people start talking about druids a lot. And I get really irritated because nobody knows what a druid actually is. The word itself comes from one reference in a Roman record, and they talked about this person in the village who was a druid, and they talked about them in a very disparaging way. They were quite insulting. They didn't say what the druid was. It might have been a village elder. It might have been the village idiot. But people have taken druid to mean this wise, mystical individual. No, we ain't got a clue what a druid is.
Well, yeah,
the local toilet cleaner.
I think the song lyrics of bands like Led Zeppelin and Tyrannosaurus Rex are probably enhance that.
Yes,
a bit.
They've got a lot to answer for.
Yeah, they are these ancient pagan. Yeah, they would have their temples and their rites.
Definitely from that era, but like I say, it might have been the local toilet cleaner. And so when you've got people going around places like Stonehenge and Avebury calling themselves druids, I get irritated. Anyway, sorry, that was just a little aside there. No druids at Puma Punku that I'm aware of.
Whatever a druid might be.
Yeah, exactly. No matter what they might be.
Puma Punku.
So it's a really fascinating play. And so many people have speculated that it must have been advanced technology that cut into the rocks at Puma Punku. Just purely the feat of engineering that it would have taken.
Yeah, I think that's always a danger, though, when you see something that was created in ancient times when people were, to our understanding, quite primitive, and you see that they've built something quite sophisticated. To say, well, no, they couldn't possibly have done that. It must have been alien visitors or something, or time travelers or whatever. There's no way these people could have done that, and I think it's a dangerous road to start travelling down. That on the basis of not much evidence saying they couldn't have done this.
The trouble, I hear what you're saying there, and I would agree with it, except that there's a lack of mistakes. When I say mistakes, so when you look over at Egypt and you look specifically at the Egyptian needles, these are these 20, 30 foot high, thin obelisks with intricate carvings of hieroglyphs on them. They know how those were made because there are examples of them being in the process of being made, where they cut channels around. They basically cut them out of the ground. And it was a long, laborious process. It was a huge engineering feat to do. But there are examples where they've done that and it's broken. So they've stopped, they've given up, they've started again somewhere else. With somewhere like Puma Punku, because we're talking about granite here, and we're talking, it would be very easy to get it wrong. You would think for the amount of, like, for these hundreds of stones, these massive, great big stones, there'd be the reject pile somewhere where they did get it wrong and, had to start again with a new piece of rock. That doesn't exist. It means they got it right first time, every time.
Did they, or did they just
struggle to do that now?
I'm making this big thing. Oh, I've screwed it up. Well, I'll cut that bit off and make a smaller thing, and the rest will just be. Yeah, 'cause there's
but
going to be
they're all
offcuts,
absolutely huge. They're not small.
No.
I mean, yeah, to an extent, you can you can adjust your design, you can cover it up, but you've got, like I mentioned earlier about the H blocks. These are a series of blocks in the exact same design as each other in a row. Well, if they'd made a mistake with one of those, you're not going to turn that into something else. It's so distinctive.
Yeah, but
yeah. So that's my kind of my answer to that is, well, where's the reject pile then?
Yeah,
where's the offcuts?
But I think, all right, it's a mystery. They've done this thing. How did they do it? I think I would start from the assumption that they did do it somehow. That it wasn't someone else who came along with superior technology and did it. That would be... I'd need a lot of convincing of that.
And I get that. But like I say, if that were the case, like I say, you would have rejects.
For instance, the appearance of pyramids on both sides of the Atlantic in Egypt and in Central South America. And was it Thor Heyerdahl in the 1960s who proved that the ancient Egyptians could have travelled across the Atlantic? He built a craft that that would have been available to them, and actually showed, I can do this.
They certainly sailed. That's not under any question at all. And you've got, is it Kuftu's boat that was buried? That would have been capable of massive long journeys.
They found Egyptian tombs with coca leaves in them that could only have come from South America.
Yeah, so where you see pyramids on different sides of the back, and absolutely, the Egyptians travelled, and they did travel, and they shared their culture in a lot of places. But the big one for me with that is, it is the most basic, stable structure you can have. It's a natural evolution of buildings is for it to be pyramidical.
But of course, we also live in an age where things are done quickly. That when we decide to put up a new building, it goes up that year. It's not that long ago, hundreds of years ago, where someone would design a cathedral that they knew they would never live to see it finished. That maybe their grandchildren would live to see it finished. They would embark on these very, very long projects. And I can imagine in the ancient world, they also, let's not just knock it up. This is an ongoing project, and this is what we're going to dedicate our time to. The Egyptians, I think, the ancient Egyptian civilization was around for longer than it hasn't been around, isn't it?
Yes.
They were around for a very long time. And, all right, there's some impressive stuff to see, but not thousands of years worth. But this could be thousands of years worth of stuff.
Well,
very carefully put together.
That were the case, there'd be records. Nobody knows who made it or why.
Lost
There's
in the
no
mists
evidence
of time.
of it.
Lost in the mists of time. But I'm
that
not going to go.
Suggest that it didn't take thousands of years to make, because that sort of record, that history, is much, much harder to lose.
But it was a long time ago.
It was a long time.
Yeah.
It was at least 2,000 years ago, potentially 17,000 years ago. But even 2,000 years ago, that's a hell of an achievement. Hell of a thing to design.
Yeah, it's impressive and it's mysterious, and we still don't know what it's for. No.
I mean, in terms of this theory that it was either extraterrestrial technology that made it, or extraterrestrials who made it. That theory has been put forward that it's there as a a testament, a record for future generations to look at and say, well, yeah, there must have been something in all this. You know, ancient alien stuff.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I think it's almost racist to go to another country and see an impressive structure and say, these people couldn't have built this. They're far too primitive. They must have had help from an outsider.
Okay, I'm going to dispute that. I don't think it's racist to say. It's not a question of saying these people couldn't. It's a question of saying, well, okay, if they did, you know, yeah, I mean, sure, people back then had the capability of working granite, but working it to this level of precision,
it's impressive, isn't it?
Would have been incredibly difficult for them. And when something's incredibly difficult, you get a lot of mistakes. And there is no evidence of the mistakes. So I'm not saying, oh, they didn't have the capability. They had the capability, but there would be evidence of it being man-made, which seems to be missing.
Yeah. But
now,
I'm not
again, so drawing the comparison with the ancient Egyptians and their pyramids, we know that their pyramids were, you know, built out of square blocks that were worked, and you know, it was a much softer rock that made that the pyramids were made out of than granite. But even they're not worked to the same levels of precision as Puma Punku.
I don't know how quickly the pyramids were knocked up. I mean, would they have been done in the lifetime of a pharaoh?
The Great Pyramid at Giza, I think that was a multi-generational pyramid. I think. I mean, they were built as tombs, but I'm working from memory now. One of our listeners will undoubtedly know.
Let's build a tomb for someone who hasn't been born yet.
Well, why not? You know they're going to be. You know there's going to be a pharaoh.
Yeah.
So,
did you know Cleopatra was the last pharaoh?
Which Cleopatra? Because there were 7 of them.
The one who got it on with Mark Antony.
The last one.
Cleopatra, the last.
Yes, and I can also tell you she's the person who introduced cats to Cyprus.
Did she? Okay.
Yeah.
They were pretty overrun with them
last till she brought them over.
Okay, they were pretty overrun with cats last time I was there.
They are, yes, unfortunately. But, yeah. There you go. You're getting all the factoids here, listeners.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Well, yeah, let's put it sounds to me like the jury's kind of out for you on this. There is a mystery, but we don't know what it is.
I don't know how they made it. I don't know why they made it, but I'm still, unless there's some very conclusive evidence, I'm going to assume that they somehow did.
Are you ruling out the possibility of otherworldly intervention? That's a bad question, isn't it?
I would never rule that out entirely, but that's certainly not my first go-to.
Okay. You think that's unlikely?
Yeah, I think I would like to know how they do it. I'm sure there's a way that they... I mean, we'll probably never know.
That's
unless some extraterrestrials turn up and say, oh yeah, we built those.
Yeah, well, disclosure's happening. We're probably going to find out next week.
I don't think we are. I don't think disclosure's happening. I think there'll be the odd distraction from something that's going on in the political, economic sphere. But I don't think there's going to be any kind of disclosure.
Well, I mean, back on with Puma Punku, I'm inclined to agree with you. I think, yes, there is a mystery. I I think this lends itself to otherworldly intervention, personally. But yeah, I'd need perhaps more evidence to fall on the side of that being the most likely explanation. I mean, yeah, it's possible they just buried all the mistakes and, someone's going to come along, start digging in the sand and find a big pile of rejects. I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, it's really, there is definitely something strange about this.
It's something strange. It's not impossible for them to have done it. That's the thing. It's not.
Not impossible. Absolutely. I wouldn't say that.
It's
but also,
very impressive.
The level of engineering that's gone into it, the level of thought and planning and logistics. It's evidence of some really heavy level logistics going on.
Yeah.
And yet there's no record of it. This is the bit that it's one of the many mysteries of the plot. Anyway, so yeah, I'm definitely falling on the maybe not pile.
And how much was destroyed by European conquistadors who turned up hundreds of years later?
Maybe that's the reason all these things have been toppled.
Maybe, and all the records destroyed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's certainly a possibility.
Yeah,
that's a possibility.
Certainly, some forms of colonization really did involve wiping out the existing indigenous culture.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Buggers. Well, let's put this to our listeners and see. We want to hear what you think, dear listener, because, for one thing, we love getting communications from people, and we love hearing what you think about all our different topics. But convince us one way or the other: is Puma Punku just a man-made incredible feat of engineering, or is there something more otherworldly? Whichever way you believe. Convince us. We're there to be convinced. So do let us know. You can contact us via the usual means. The links are all below. There's an email address, aliensexplored@gmail.com. We've got Facebook. We've got Twitter or X-Twitter or Twitter X or whatever. And we've got our YouTube channel, of course. You can pop comments in below on that. And if you're one of our Patreon members, you get exclusive access to our Discord server, so you can chat to us that way as well. Like I say, all the links are below. Join us next time, though, when we'll be looking from ruins in the desert and looking up to the skies as we investigate skyfish, also known as flying rods.
Skyfish. Wow.
Skyfish. This is Neil's first time hearing about this.
It is. It's a new one on me. Flying rods.
Yeah. Flying rods, they're also called as well. An interesting phenomenon that we'll be looking into next week. In the meantime, keep watching out for ancient records and, of course, keep watching the skies. Take care for now.
Catch you next time. Bye-bye.